Rolling forward, Dr. Sister Science Facts.
Welcome back to Rolin Forward Summer School. I'm Dr. Stephanie Rolin.
And I'm Dr. Alicia Rolin.
I'm a forensic psychiatrist.
And I'm a pediatric emergency physician.
We're sisters, physicians, researchers, podcasters, and now melted popsicles.
Today, we're continuing our summer school series, where every week we're tackling one lesson from the pediatric emergency department to help families have a fun and hopefully injury-free summer.
We have hopefully survived fireworks with all fingers, eyebrows, and patio furniture intact, and have now arrived at the next phase of summer.
It's extremely hot, and we are in DC, so the sidewalk is now a skillet.
Truly hotter than inside of the oven. This is the part of summer where every parent is carrying a water bottle, a backup water bottle, maybe a third backup like we were today, sunscreen, snacks, and one child who has decided their legs no longer work.
And because this is summer school, we're not just saying, wow, it's hot, but I am saying, wow, it's hot.
It's hot.
It's hot.
It's so hot.
But we're also asking, when does heat become dangerous for kids? What does heat exhaustion actually look like? When is it an emergency? And how can we keep doing normal summer things like camp, playground, sports, festivals, cars, and splash pads, and keep them from turning into pediatric emergency room visits?
Because heat illness is real, but it is preventable. And in considering the risks, it's important to know that kids are not tiny adults. They don't always recognize what's happening, they don't always communicate it clearly, and they rely on adults to build in shade, fluid, breaks, and cooling before things go really wrong.
So today's lesson is extreme heat and tiny sweaty people, how to spot the warning signs, what to do early, and why sometimes the bravest parenting move is leaving the zoo before you leave by ambulance.
Which is not pessimism. This is prevention. So today we're going to walk through this in 4 parts. First, why kids overheat differently than adults. Second, what heat illness actually looks like, from heat rash to heat stroke. Third, where summer heat can really sneak up on families. Places like the playgrounds or strollers, cars, just being on the sidewalk. And fourth, what parents, schools, and cities can actually do before heat becomes an emergency.
Exactly. Think of this as your pediatric emergency room heat map. What to watch for, what to do early, and when to get help.
So let's get started.
Rolling forward, Dr. Sister Science Facts.
First up, Alicia, why are kids different in the heat?
Kids depend on adults to manage the environment. Infant and toddlers cannot get themselves into air conditioning, ask clearly for water, change their clothes, or say, I believe my thermoregulation is currently failing.
Instead, what you're going to hear is, I hate this water, after you lovingly purchased a simple bottle of water for $12 at the zoo. And then instead, they're going to ask for a pouch that's been boiling in your bag since 8 a.m.
Kids also get wrapped up in play. They may ignore thirst, they may ignore fatigue, and ignore how hot they are because there is a slide, a ball, a scooter, or a really important stick.
The stick is so important. It has to be that particular stick and not another stick.
Not another stick, that stick.
Did you ever try breaking it into 2 when kids were fighting over the very important stick so they could each have a piece of it and then nobody wants it anymore?
No, you broke the stick.
Yeah, I made that parenting mistake very early on.
So it's important to recognize the heat spiral. At the mild end, there is heat rash, which are little red bumps or irritated skin, often where kids get sweaty. Then you can get heat cramps, which are painful muscular cramps after running around and sweating. And that can extend to heat exhaustion, which includes headaches, dizziness, nausea, weakness, heavy sweating, irritability, vomiting, and not peeing as much as usual.
And heat exhaustion can really look like your kid is a sweaty mess with an attitude.
And sometimes that's just being outside in the summer.
Truly.
But sometimes it's a warning sign. If your child seems overheated, stop the activity. Move him to the shade, move him to air conditioning, loosen clothing, offer fluids, use cool cloths. Don't try to push through an activity.
Which is really hard for parents because we've already paid for the camp, the amusement park, the tournament, the matching family t-shirts. We've created this image of what it's going to be.
But the heat does not care about your sunken costs. The concern is that if you push through, kids can develop heat stroke, which is an emergency. If a child is confused, fainting, having a seizure, acting really bizarrely, they're too sleepy to stay awake, they're too sleepy to take a drink, they're not responding normally, it's important that you call 911. You need to start cooling them right away. This is not a wait and see.
So on this continuum, we go from rash to cramps, exhaustion, and then you're talking about that big red emergency, heat stroke.
And the goal is to intervene way before someone progresses to heat stroke.
And Alicia, when you're treating families for heat stroke, where does this happen? Because I think people often picture a desert, and most parents are not going to be hiking through Death Valley with a toddler. They're going to be at a splash pad where, maybe there's minimal shade, or perhaps a camp pickup line, a baseball field, or a street festival where everyone's having so much fun, according to their Instagram.
Exactly. And all of these places can be a huge issue. Playgrounds have slides and swings and blacktop and surfaces that can get very hot. Important to check the slide with your hand. In Europe, all the slides when we were young were made out of metal, and I've definitely burned my bum.
You were in so much pain. It sounds funny now in retrospect, but it was actually a real emergency.
I had blister bubbles on my bum from the slide.
And I made fun of her the entire time, but truly actually an emergency. Don't have blistered bums. And in places like DC, it's really not just the playground. You can be waiting for the bus with no shade. It's about to be there in 3 minutes, and 30 minutes later, the timer has not changed. Or maybe you're standing on a metro platform that feels like the inside of a toaster. Or you just got to walk 3 blocks on blacktop, and all of a sudden your kid seems so disengaged.
City heat matters. Pavement, buildings, traffic, and lack of shade can all make a hot day feel hotter. So families not only need to think about their destination, but the whole route. How are you getting there? Where is the shade? Where can you cool off? How long are you waiting outside?
And strollers. I think this is really important because strollers can feel like such a win as a parent. You strap the child in, and then they will go with you at the speed that you want them to go. But every summer, it's really important to remember not to drape a blanket over the stroller.
You want shade and airflow. A covered stroller can trap heat if air is not circulating.
You basically don't want to make a tiny covered greenhouse for your baby, as cozy as that might seem.
And for camps and sports, the key is to break before symptoms. You should drink water before you're thirsty. You should spend some time in the shade before the meltdown. Kids who are sick or recovering from vomiting, diarrhea, or fever should be extra careful with heat and exercise. That is not the day to be brave at soccer camp.
Being heroic in that situation would be a terrible idea. And maybe your child is doing a school activity like marching band, where they're outside for a long period of time. And they might be in these heavy uniforms or even carrying very heavy instruments during the summer, the hottest months of the year.
For camps, schools, and teams, adults need actual heat plans. Not just bring a water bottle. There should be scheduled breaks, shade, cooling options, and a plan for what to do if a child starts looking unwell.
Because children are not going to self-regulate, particularly when they're in a group setting where there are all their friends, the usual hangout time, gossip sesh, and chaos.
And that's why there are adults there.
And we do need to talk briefly about cars as well. As people who live in a city, we're often walking places, taking the metro, taking the bus. But there's a lot of families who use cars on a day-to-day basis, and cars in the summer have particular risks.
The most important thing is to never leave a child in a parked car. Not for a minute, not with the windows open, not because they finally fell asleep and you just have to run inside and get this one thing.
And this is not about shame, because I actually think shame makes this worse. We all think, oh, I would never do that, and then stop listening. But tragedies happen so often in hot cars.
The inside of a car acts like a greenhouse, causing temperatures to rise nearly 20 degrees Fahrenheit within the first 10 minutes. So on a mild 80-degree Fahrenheit day, the interior of the car can reach nearly 100 degrees Fahrenheit within 10 minutes and 115 degrees Fahrenheit in 30 minutes.
Which is so hot. And every summer, we hear about tragedies involving children forgotten in hot cars. And I think what's important here is that it's not just about summer being hot, it's also about summer involving routine disruption and distractions. Instead of school, we have summer camp. Instead of all 3 kids going to the same place, they're going to 3 different drop-off spots. And we might be exhausted. Who sleeps well when it's 100 degrees outside and they're doing fireworks at 2 o'clock in the morning? I'm looking at you, DC.
The big recommendation is to put something that you can't forget or that you won't forget in the back of the car, like your left shoe. You're driving the car with the right foot, leave your left shoe next to the car seat.
Basically, build a system so that it's foolproof. For me, I work in a double locked setting. I need to show my ID badge and then also key in. I would never go to work without my badge. So something like that being in the back seat, if I had a car, theoretically, and we're driving to work, would be built into the system. You want that reminder to be automatic. And these sound silly, but we are all subject to distraction. And the goal here is not to prove that you're a perfect parent. You want to just make the safe thing happen, even when your brain is overloaded. Because every summer, I don't know about you, but my brain is overloaded with all of the logistics that comes from summer.
And that's really the whole heat episode, honestly. Heat makes you exhausted, and it's important to plan accordingly.
You want to build a system that works with routine breaks, routine shade, routine water, and automatic reminders, and not just go on vibes or feelings.
So let's do a quick myth-busting round, because heat advice is one of those areas where everyone has heard something from your grandmother.
Or a friend on TikTok. So let me get started. First myth. Kids will drink when they're thirsty.
False. Thirst should not be your plan. Kids will ignore thirst to keep playing, and little kids may not understand what they're feeling.
Okay. Second myth. They're sweating, so it's fine.
Sweating means the body is trying to cool down. It does not mean that the body is winning.
Good reminder. My body is not winning right now.
A child can be sweaty and still develop heat exhaustion or heat stroke. And in certain ages, kids don't know how to sweat yet.
Yeah, Marvel just started sweating. It's really cute. It's really cute. She got like miniature sweat. That's how you know I'm her mom. Okay, how about this? We're at a splash pad. Heat doesn't count.
Water helps, but it doesn't erase heat risk. Kids at pools, splash pads, and water parks can still get overheated, dehydrated, and sunburned, especially if there's no shade or they're running around for hours.
And I don't know about you, but my kid seems to think that she's invincible anytime that there's a splash pad around. Okay, how about, hey, the stroller, the wagon, the radio flyer is shaded. We're good.
Shade is good, but airflow matters. If you cover a stroller in the way that trap heats, then the inside can get hotter and hotter, just like a car or a greenhouse. So use breathable shade, keep moving, and check the child often.
How about I packed Gatorade? It's better than water. They'll be fine.
For most children doing routine summer activities, water more than adequate. Sports drinks can be helpful in periods of prolonged intense exercise and hot weather, but not every child needs an electrolyte beverage to walk around a zoo.
Okay, how about this one? You may have heard this before. I grew up when it was hot. We didn't even have AC. Kids just need to tough it out. They'll learn.
Heat is not a character-building exercise. If a kid is dizzy, nauseated, weak, vomiting, confused, or not acting right, you stop. You cool down. You get help if they're not improving or if their symptoms are severe.
So it sounds like your official advice is don't let summer peer pressure bully you into becoming an ER story.
Correct.
Let's make this really practical. Let's say that I am about to leave the house with a child, my child, on a very hot day known as today. What should I bring?
Before you leave, check the heat index, not just the temperature. Pack fluids. Put on sunscreen. Think about shade. Think about when and where you can cool down and have a leaving plan. Something that we talk about is like, what happens if the bus breaks down? What happens if the car breaks down? What happens if we can't get to the destination, the schedule that we were expecting?
Because otherwise you're going to end up 30 minutes from home. Everyone is crying, parents included. And you're negotiating with a child who has lost the ability to regulate any emotions or process what you're saying.
And while you're out, offer drinks often. Take breaks before anyone looks sick. Check in with your kids who are a little quieter than usual. And pay attention to babies and toddlers who cannot always tell you what is wrong.
I feel like the quieter than usual is really important because it's hard not to notice the really loud meltdown. I certainly notice those. But sometimes the scary thing is the kid who's suddenly quiet, maybe a little floppy, really weak.
A child who's unusually sleepy, weak, hard to engage, starting to get a little confused, needs attention. And so those kids are the ones that need to be cooled down and reassessed.
And let's say you survived this outing and you have returned home victorious. What do you do when you get home?
Cool down. Keep fluids. Just because you're inside doesn't mean that you have to stop drinking water. And watch for delayed symptoms, things like headache, vomiting, unusual sleepiness, dizziness, not peeing as much as usual. Most kids will perk up with cooling, rest, and fluids, but if they don't, or if there's anything that feels concerning, call your pediatrician or seek care.
I like that because it makes heat safety feel less like one dramatic moment and more like a rhythm. You plan, you pause, you cool, you reassess. You plan, you pause, you cool, you reassess.
Exactly, because heat safety is not one water bottle. It's a system.
What if your child is refusing water? She wants the other bottle that you left at home.
You've described every toddler. Keep offering and use whatever works within reason. And I think the secret here is that popsicles totally count as oral rehydration solution.
Ooh, don't tell them that.
And so keep offering water, popsicles. Fruit actually have a really large water content. The perfect hydration plan is less important than what actually gets into their bodies.
And when do parents need help?
Overall, the rule is if someone seems overheated, stop and cool down. If they're doing any weird behaviors that aren't normal, they seem confused, they're not acting like themselves, go to the emergency department.
So the takeaway of this episode is not never go outside in fear of the sun, although that would be reasonable, and I feel that way many days. The takeaway here is to respect heat, plan for it, take breaks before you need them, hydrate early, cool down before you feel like you need to, and get help quickly when symptoms are serious.
And that's our episode for today. Go hydrate your children and yourself.
Especially if you're listening to this while standing in direct sun, holding 3 tote bags, a scooter, a helmet, and a snack that your child specifically requested you packed and now hates. Why would you do that?
Rolling forward, Dr. Sister Science Facts.
Thanks for joining this week's episode of the Rolling Forward podcast.
I'm Dr. Alicia Rolin.
I'm Dr. Stephanie Rolin.
Share this with a friend whose child is also currently having a meltdown about hating the snack that you just packed.
Maybe you're sitting next to them on the bus. It happens to me. Leave us a 5-star review if you've enjoyed this.
And you can always find us on socials or send us an email at RolinForwardShow. That's ROLIN@gmail.com.
And class dismissed.
Rolling forward, Dr. Sister Science Facts.
Hello, everyone. First take that I ever sing a song. And I'll sing See You Later, Alligator. Thank you. See you later, alligator. Out the wild crocodile. Bye-bye, butterfly. See